Have you opened you what?
Oh, we're live now, Katie. We're live.
Right.
Hello, everyone. We are back with another great webinar. Not me, nothing to do with me. It's the guests that make it great. And we've got an incredible human being, Katie Millett, who has otherwise known as a Chelsea wellness coach, who's been around the wellness world, in and out, doing everything to do with it for 12 years, from breathwork, nutrition, general well-being, mindfulness, you name it, she does it. But she's also very good at dancing on the tables and drinking and doing everything else. So we're all about balance and not having to go into an extreme to be healthy and an extreme to be, fit. And it is all about balance. And Katie is very good at balance. And we have an amazing sponsor again, Gibson's Goodology. An amazing wellness drink infused with CBD oil that we will discuss later as well, because CBD confuses a lot of people. But check them out because they actually taste really good, because a lot of these drinks taste like shite, to be honest. But these taste really good. But I will hand over to Katie, and any questions anyone has, there's no such thing as a silly question. So fire them in. And once she stops talking at some point, we will fire loads of questions at Katie and ask whatever. So over to you, Kay. Except she's frozen, which is really helpful for me right now, because I'm not going to talk to you about well-being, because let's be honest. Where's she gone? Hang on. Where have you gone? Where is she? Hang on. Katie. Katie. Let me see if I can find her. But in the meantime, get all your questions lined up and fired over. Hang on, Millett. Just going to call her. Oh, she's in and out. Hang on.
Have I got you, Emma?
Yeah, I mean, you left me having to talk about well-being, which was never going to happen. So,
I mean, this is the balancing act, isn't it? This is working from home. What a beautiful example of how hard it is. Right, let's try again. Apologies. So Emma, thank you very much. Firstly, these are amazing drinks. So I think if we've got time at the end, which we will do, we can talk a little bit about CBD. CBD is something I use a lot day to day with myself, my children, and my patients. So let's give it some time to talk about it. So first of all, I am Katie, and I am a wellness coach. I do a number of different things, but I work within a Harley Street clinic, and we work with functional medicine. Within the functional medicine, we're working with the gut to improve people's wellness and health, focusing on the gut. I also, a massive passion of mine is around mental health and kind of lifestyle, and getting hold of people's lifestyle and helping them to find balance. And any red flags that come up within one's life, whether it's partners or children or bosses, whatever that might be, we try and find ways in which we can just help regain a bit of balance and tackle that. So I did think that actually the term balancing act for this webinar was a little bit misleading. And I'm sorry, Emma, that's slightly controversial, but I think when we talk about balance, it has a slight kind of negative connotation, and I think it becomes quite competitive, especially the world that we've come from. I know that I fell into the trap of thinking I could balance loads of different things, and I could run my children, I could run a job, and I could go out 3 times a week, and I could do everything, and I was fine. And actually what we have found throughout this global pandemic is that we in fact cannot balance and remain happy individuals. So what we want to talk about today is a little bit about stress, what's going on now. I'll touch upon really briefly about what happens in the body when we interact with stress and come across stress. But importantly, I want to focus on the positive things we can do in and around stress to make our life just a little bit easier. So we always want to look at the positives and not so much the negatives. So keeping it very relevant to today, we are in a global pandemic. We are working from home. We are spending too much time with our partners, our children. We love them dearly, but it is a very unnatural situation that we find ourselves in. We are consumed by fear from the media, and it all adds up, and we are beginning to lose our way and lose control. Having said this, within every situation, there has to be a way we can look for some kind of growth. And there is a term in psychology of, we look at post-traumatic stress, and out of post-traumatic stress, we can find post-traumatic growth. I love that. It's such a positive way of looking forward from trauma and stress and trying to find the positives out of that. So that's what we're going to try and do today. We're going to try and find the areas in which we can grow and do self-development from this pandemic and where we find ourselves now. So to get started, and it's quite difficult because I'm talking to myself, but I'd like to just practice a little bit of a breathing exercise, and I will explain why later. But just to get us in the mood, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, just find a nice comfortable seat. You can lie down if you want, but comfortable seat, and just closing the eyes or softening the gaze. If it's not comfortable, sometimes people find it uncomfortable to close the eyes. So just find a soft gaze. If you can, both feet on the ground. I'm just going to ask you for a few moments just to take a bit of a check-in, a report of where you are today, right now. Let's take a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being pretty rubbish, 10 being amazing, and 5 being average. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no competitions for being 1 or 10. Just observing, noticing where you are right here, right now. Really nice. And they're going to ask you very gently, just become aware of your breath. So the breath ideally is moving in and out of the body through your nose. And just become aware of the journey of the breath, how it feels, where it travels. Is it easy to connect with the breath, or is it something you're struggling with? Does the breath flow with ease, or is it getting stuck? There's no right, there's no wrong. Just noticing. This is a technique to observe, to feel, to listen, to connect. We are losing connection with ourselves because we are connecting way too much with the outside world. So I'm asking you to connect with yourself. Really lovely. And then I'm going to kind of delegate this over to you. So I'm going to ask you to begin to find a really nice length, a softness in your exhalation. And I'd like us to find an exhalation that is longer than our inhalation. So for example, if we're inhaling for a count of 3, let's exhale for a count of 5. If you're inhaling for a count of 4, let's exhale for a count of 6. So wherever you are, whatever your count is, everyone is different. Just finding a longer exhalation than your inhalation. Very soft. The mind might wander. Totally normal. Just bring it back to the breath. Very soft exhalation. The exhalation is longer than our inhalation. Slowing the mind down, reconnecting. Okay, nice. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope that you had some effect from that practice. So now I'd like you just to come back and come to that scale again, that scale of 1 to 10. How do you feel now post doing that little bit of breath work? You may have no change. You may have found that focusing on the breath actually caused the monkey mind to go crazy. You may find that you feel more calm, grounded, and maybe more engaged. There's no right or wrong answer. It's about understanding where you are, what effect something had within your mind, body. And I'll explain why we did that in a bit. So before we go and talk about our I'm going to give you 3 or 4 hacks. I hate that word, but people recognize that word. So hacks to walk away from today with. And the idea of those is to make us a little bit more resilient around stress. We cannot avoid stress. We need stress. There's always going to be stress. So the idea of this is not to avoid stress, not to run away from stress, but to empower us with some tools and ideas to build resilience around stress. And when we have resilience around stress, we are less reactive. The less reactive we are, the more we're able to take on, if you like, without being effective. So stress comes in many, many different shapes and sizes. We have acute stress and we have chronic stress. It comes in the form of social stress, which we're interacting with a lot at the moment. And we have environmental stress, so pollution, whether it's outdoor pollution, indoor pollution. We have stress through consumption, so nutrition, alcohol. So it comes from all different places. And if we don't get hold of our stress and learn to deal with our stress, what happens is we begin to see inflammation in the body. And when we have too much inflammation in the body, we begin to see dis-ease. Disease in the body leads to disease. And we can link and track a lot of modern illnesses now and ailments back to inflammation and therefore back to some kind of form of stress, which is why it is so important for us to try and get hold of it. So again, it is unavoidable. We don't want to avoid it. We don't want to avoid it and run away from it. We want to learn to deal with it. So the first thing, the easiest thing and the most beautiful thing I do every single day is breathe. So what we've just done a moment ago is used our breath to activate our nervous system. So when we think about stress and our nervous system, we think about it in two parts. We have our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight, and we have our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest. And what we need is a balance. If we're too far tilted in terms of our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest, then we are a bit sloth-like and we will have no get up and go to do anything. We won't be able to get out of the way of the moving car. We won't be able to stay up and work to deadlines. We won't be able to stand up for ourselves in a debate, whatever that might be. If we are leaning too far into the sympathetic nervous system, we find ourselves not in balance, unable to focus, feeling like we don't have enough time. We begin to see ailments come up, etc., etc. So we need to find this balance. And by using the breath, it is free, which is really good, but it is one of the quickest, most effective tools we have available to us to help get hold of our nervous system. And by very simply engaging in our breath and lengthening our exhalations, we can activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest. So when do I practice this? How do I practice it? A lot of people, it's really common for people to say to me, I don't have time to do breath work. That's rubbish. I will find time for you. You can get up in the morning and you can spend a few moments connecting and working with your breath. You can do it on the loo. You can do it in the shower. You can do it whilst cooking. You can do it whilst driving the car. Do it whilst you're out walking, at your desk. All we're asking you to do is stimulate and activate and lengthen that exhalation, and that will bring about this sense of calm as we activate and engage with your parasympathetic nervous system. I hope that is made.
I think Katie's managed to switch herself out of the chat. Honestly, I am so bored of digital Zoom type things. One day we'll be back in the real world and having actual human interactions offline doing these talks. She should come on any minute now, but I'm watching the questions come in. Here she is. So I will get her to answer them. I mean, honestly, stop touching the buttons, woman.
I'm back. Right, sorry about that.
Okay, I'm going out again. Go for it. I'm just telling people I'm watching the questions, and when you've finished, I'll ask you the questions that are coming in. So
I don't think I can see the questions.
It's all right. There's two. Which actually, if you can answer now because it's relevant. What's the best way to find a calm and flowing breath, particularly not being able to exhale fully?
So it takes practice. So we were talking about this before we came on. It's working with your breath can be really, really difficult for people, especially if you have a tendency to be anxious or suffer from anxiety. When we first start to practice and use the breath as a technique, it can actually make us feel more anxious in itself. So it takes time, and really it takes hard work and dedication. There's no other answer, but you have to just concentrate on the inhaling. And as long as the exhale is longer than the inhale, we're activating that parasympathetic nervous system. So there is no quick fix. It is just practice. Does that help?
That also, I do it, and it's that most people like exhale, and it's only kind of this top part that is actually making that conscious effort to exhale and feel it coming through the diaphragm, and then exhaling as if it's coming out of your tummy is the way I describe it. It's sort of, you can kind of feel the stages and visualize it. It's coming out the top bit, okay, through the diaphragm, and really out the stomach to get it properly all out.
There's lots of different types of exercises as well. So, we do box breathing, I do full diaphragmatic breathing. The sad thing with all of this is there's no one size fits all. So one of the things that is first and foremost is so important to do is connect with yourself, understand how you feel on any given day, and then pick up these different tools that we have available to us to react appropriately. And it isn't one size fits all. So it is about finding what works for you. But it's difficult, especially if you do suffer from anxiety and depression and things like that, because focusing on the breath is hard.
And I'm just going to throw the other question that's come in out before you carry on. Finding it difficult, and this is what a lot of people are, that balance at the moment. If I can hear the headmaster, my husband downstairs, dealing with a 6-year-old who's refusing to study right now. It's that that's coming in one ear while trying to talk to you the other ear. It's that someone's asked about if you've only got a small space to do everything. What's your words of advice in managing balance in a small physical space?
In terms of, do you mean there are other people around, or just a physical?
Just someone said using a very small space for work, home, rest, exercise, relationship, and can you offer any words of advice in managing balance in a small space?
Get out of the space, and I won't talk about it too much today. I don't have time, but it's so important to get out in nature. It is absolutely science. It's backed by science. There's so much research to suggest that connecting with nature is so important for us. I would make sure that every single day, whether it's at lunchtime, getting out and having a walk at lunchtime, or when you finish work, and just getting out, being mindful, observing the sky, looking at the trees, and it sounds a bit airy-fairy, but it worked. I'm the mad person that goes to Hyde Park in the rain and takes my shoes and socks off and does her earthing and grounding, because it does make you feel so much more better and connected. So my advice to that would be to get out of that space as much as you can.
Yeah, cool. All right, you carry on. I'm going to leave you now until you decide to press a button again. Go.
Me. Okay, cool. So we've spoken about the breath, and again, there are so many different techniques we can use, and I'd love to spend some time going through all of those, but I can't today. Secondly, another thing that I'd like us to think about, another hack, if you like, is internalizing the positive. So I've got some really bad news, but there is lots we can do about. Our brain preferably scans, remembers, recalls, and reacts to the negatives, which is a bit rubbish. So imagine the brain, you've got Velcro, and it's like Velcro to the negatives, and it's like Teflon to positive experiences. So even if our positive experiences outweigh the negative ones, we will still have this scanning and will attach to the negatives more, which means it's hard work to keep positive. So somebody I was talking to, a male friend, about this last night, and he gave a really good example. And he said that imagine you're in a football team and you've won a football match 3-0, but you, that individual, missed a penalty. That individual is probably really likely to walk away from that football match and remember how he missed that penalty rather than them winning the match. Does that make sense? So what we have to do is spend some time harboring and focusing on the positives as much as we can. So there's this saying which I love, and it's all about this neuroplasticity, that neurons that fire together wire together. So the more we spend time harboring the positives and practicing positives, gratifications, whatever that might be, the brain over time will rewire and rebuild itself. So we're more likely to reach for, recognize, recall the positives over the negatives. So how do we do that? When you get praised for something at work, sit with it, feel it, observe it. When somebody says something nice to you or kind to you, don't just let it float in and float out and ignore it. Observe it, work with it. When you witness your children laughing, enjoying, doing something that makes them happy, engage with it, put your phone down, turn off the distractions, the external distractions, engage with it, feel it. And again, the more we practice it, the more our brain will kind of go there easy, like much more easier. So let's try maybe a little bit of a practice. If you close your eyes and just take a little bit of a smile to your face, very soft smile, so turning the corners of your mouth up to make a smile. And I want you to imagine and think of somebody that you love. Friends, family, a pet, whatever that might be. And I want you to visualize and imagine giving that person, that pet, whoever that might be, a really nice hug. And really absorb the memories, the feelings, the emotions that come up with that connection. Harbor those feelings, the emotions, allow them to really flow like energy through your mind and body. That positive memory. Nice. Okay, so just come out of that and we'll get some feedback from that later on. But I hope with remembering and thinking of something that brings you joy and something that you love, you can feel that that brings out the dopamine, the happy hormones. So the more we do that, the more we're going to produce. And there is a lot of research to suggest that the happier we are today, the likelihood that we are going to be happy tomorrow. And the more we are negative, so the more we kind of focus on the bad things, the negatives, the more we look to depressive things, then the more that is going to lead to depression and what have you, bad mental health in the future. Okay, so we've had our breath work, which is our number one. It's easy. It's very easy. Everyone can do it. We can do it all through our day, and we all have time to focus on our breath. We have harboring and focusing on the positive things, which is so important. Find your way that works for you, whether it's gratitude, calling good memories like that, calling a friend, whatever that might be, finding pockets within your day to remember the positive things, the people you love, and the things and the memories that make you happy. Particularly important, I think, to note actually is we're at home with our children, and there is no doubt that our children will be suffering as well as us at the moment in the pandemic. So spend a few moments with them before they go to bed and ask them to recall things in their day that have been positive. Things that they like to learn, things that they did well, things that you recognize that they did well. We really need to be encouraging our children to be doing the same. We need to lead by example and encourage our children to be doing the same. Okay, so movement, another really fundamental thing is movement. We've got to be moving in our day. The mind and the body are connected. They are interacting all of the time. And we know that when we move, we release happy hormones. So it's really, really important. It's not everyone's cup of tea to get out and do a really hard run, and it's not always appropriate. There is sometimes we are, I think, in the modern world, we over-exercise. We are in a bit of a pandemic of thinking the more we exercise, the better we're going to feel and the better we're going to look. And it's not always the case. We are under a lot of stress, given our situation and the pandemic and working from home and taking on a lot. If we decide to then over-exercise on that, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, however, if we over-exercise, we are causing almost more stress sometimes to our bodies. So we need to just react and respond appropriately on any given day to how we're feeling. If you're feeling really stressed, tired, and burnt out, the best thing to do is probably not go for a massive run. The best thing to do is probably go for a walk, do some yoga, put some music on, whatever that might be. If you're feeling very calm and in control and you fancy a run or a really good body weight session in the park, then that's fine. But we really need to be reacting and responding to how we are feeling and be compassionate. We are so good at ignoring how we're really feeling. And going back to the breath work and noticing how we are feeling and connecting, that all gives us the tools to notice and respond and react appropriately in terms of movement. My favorite thing is putting on some music and having a kitchen disco. So for those of you that know me well, know that I love my music. And music is obviously very good for our mental health too. It triggers memories and happy hormones as well. So together with the movement and the music, it's a recipe for all sorts of good things. So we've got our movement. Get some kind of movement in every day. React appropriately to what that should be. Don't over-exercise. That can do sometimes more harm than good. And then the last thing I'd like to just touch upon briefly is removing and minimizing toxic situations, environments, and people. So toxicity comes in all forms. It can look like it can be environmental, social, people, news, all sorts. And there's my favorite. There's an author called Cheryl Richardson, and she has written a book called Extreme Self-Care, and it's one of my favorites books. I have it around with me all the time. I recommend it a lot to my patients and my clients, and it's very, very good for putting boundaries into your life in and around people and in terms of toxic load. The first one that's really important to note is toxicity via media. So we all suffer from this, and the media controls us largely by fear. And if we don't manage that toxicity around the media, we experience extreme anxiety. Everything you read on your phones is negative. We're not going to make it to tomorrow. It just goes on and on and on and on. So we have to find ways to minimize that. So change your home screen on your phone. You can customize what media comes into you. I wouldn't watch the news late at night before you go to bed. For me personally, if I watch news late into the evening, I find it triggers my mind to switch on, and it can trigger anxiety, and therefore I can't sleep. And then we have this cycle. Friends, WhatsApp groups, love to talk about negative things and fear on WhatsApp groups and things like that. So just manage that. Come out of the groups if it's too much, if it's causing you anxiety. Take yourself away. No one minds. The most important person is you. So you have to kind of be true and manage the situation. Toxic people. I love this. Removing toxic people. We all need to remove toxic people. We all have people in our lives who like to put us down, who remind us of the things we've done wrong, who spend a lot of time moaning about things that might not be about us, but just moaning. We all know them. People who generally come into your lives and drain your energy. I'm sure we have all got them. There comes a point where we have to limit those people because they create toxicity and within our life. So how do we do that? We can sit down and we can have honest conversations with those people and suggest that something around their behavior must change because they are causing, they're having a negative impact on ourselves. You can limit your time around those people. Friends, family, whoever it might be. It's a really good time to do it in a global pandemic because we're locked down anyway. So we have the best excuse to reduce and remove toxic people from our lives. Really, really important one. And then technology is so bad at the moment. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have our iPads, our laptops. We have so many gadgets around us. And I could go into about the electromagnetic field and the effect of that, but actually it's more to do with how we engage with it. We are constantly under attack by technology. So our emails are going, our WhatsApps are going, our text messages are going, and it's all going off. And what this means is we are constantly on high alert and we don't seem to get a break. which for our stress levels and that what we were talking about at the beginning in terms of our fight and flight response means we are constantly being triggered. When we reply to our bosses, our friends, our family, we tend to do it quite instant at the moment. What that is teaching people is that we are available to them at all times. So it's really good practice to take a few hours, maybe half a day if it's your family or something, to respond to people. So we then put boundaries in place, and people don't expect us to come back and respond like this. Because I, for one, am the worst, and I get myself into terrible tears having to respond to everybody really, really quickly. And then I wonder why I've got no time and I'm stressed and I feel like no one gives me space. So it's really important to put some boundaries in and around people so people know what to expect of you. So that is a kind of a speed dating. Yeah, we're good on time. That's a bit of a speed dating in and around a few hacks. Emma, you're back.
Hiya.
So difficult talking to yourself. I wish you'd stayed on.
I know, but then I'll be like that. You just have this complete idiot, like just staring at the screen throughout like the YouTube and Facebook videos.
I'm really idiot staring at myself.
But no, that you're talking about your phone. Do you know what? I put my phone and yeah, but I've been like standing with people and it's like beeping, beeping. I'm like, turn it off, and it's like it's messages. I'm like, I put my phone on silent about 2 years ago. It's completely silent on everything, and I will pick it up when I want to pick it up. Yeah. And people go, well, what about phone calls? I'm like, I've got this. There's no messages on this. It just vibrates when there's a phone call, and I could look at it and go, I don't want to answer it if I don't know the number. I never answer unknown numbers. I never answer numbers that aren't saved in my phone, that I don't know who they are, because they'll leave a message if it's important. And it's made such a difference to me going, there isn't this constant beeping, beeping, beeping messages and email coming through, WhatsApp coming through. It's sort of, WhatsApp groups are muted.
We suffer from this everyone's time poor, and I do it as well. And I don't have enough time, and I'm really busy. And actually, it's really it's kind of self-inflated opinion of our own self. We do have time. It's about how you choose to manage your own time, and cutting these out and the interruptions from these is one of the quickest ways to gain back control and time. But we've got a question. Extreme self-care is there a woman called Cheryl Richardson. And the book is Extreme Self-Care. It's not a lot. I think it's about $5. You can get it on Amazon. It's absolutely brilliant. And it's not kind of going to get a massage once a week. It is about boundaries and removing toxicity, and it's really, really practical. It's great.
Because that's it, isn't it? It's all a lot of the whole self-care. A lot of people are put off by it and mindfulness, and that because it's, especially at the moment, there's so much in your face and all the digital and all the tech and stuff. It's like it's not something that just feels like you can do, or it just feels like it's a bit out there. And like we were talking earlier about mindfulness, and I've always gone, well, I can't switch my brain off, so how is it ever going to work? And every time I've tried to do it, my to-do list is still going totally through my head, therefore it doesn't work, I can't do it. And I learned, it wasn't till the end of last year, I learned that actually you're not meant to switch your brain off. You're just meant to keep bringing it back. So what's your advice on that? Because I know that is a big thing to so many people. They're like, well, we can't do it, so we won't do it.
Yeah, well, sadly, it is hard. It is really hard. I'm quite a yang person anyway, so meditation is quite difficult for me to get hold of. There's those different kind of breath works meditation, and there's different styles to suit different people, and it's about finding what works for you. If you've got an active mind and you find it difficult, my advice would be to do a focus where if you're doing a meditation, so focus on a mantra, or focus on your breathing or counting or something that gives your mind a bit of a focus. But having said that, it is practice makes perfect, and over time, the more you practice, the more your brain will rewire and it will become easier. So you just have to practice. You just have to stick with it. It's this neuroplasticity. That's what I want everyone to always walk away with, is knowing that we can change the makeup of the brain. And that's why it brings it alive for me, because it gives you reason to practice.
Yeah, and someone's asked, actually, Mizzy's asked, ideas to stop work and switch off in the evening, because again, it's hard. Everything's a blur at the moment. Everything is sort of all under one roof doing it, and so kind of getting, again, as you said, getting the boundaries of like switching off work, relaxing, in the evening? What's, again, it's probably just putting your phone down.
Yeah, putting your phone down and maybe having a break, for instance, going for a walk. So leaving your flat, your house, going for a walk, and just using that as your point of like, right, I've left work now. When I go back in, it's going to be my evening and my social time. Maybe putting on some music. Again, just I would find something that works for you that can signify the end of work and the beginning of your social time.
Cool. And then, do you know what, we need to talk about it, because I've asked you loads of questions about it. Is the whole CBD thing, because I always joke when people go, how do you do it, and all the balance stuff, and I'm like, I always say wine and CBD, that getting a balance of those two things. And actually I say it jokingly, that there's some seriousness behind it. And I came off anti-anxiety meds onto CBD like a year and a half ago, and I've never looked back, and I absolutely swear by it. So what, and Gibson's Goodology, the drinks are all CBD infused. They're great. So what just tell us a bit about CBD, because a lot of people go, what are we going to get high and just be wacky backy the whole time, and how much do we take, and what's your advice on that?
Sorry, no, you're not going to get high. No, so CBD is it comes from the cannabis plant, hemp plant, and you've got two parts of it. You have the CBD and you have the THC. The CBD is the calming bit, and the THC is a psychoactive bit. So in CBD, you do not have the psychoactive THC part. Fundamentally, it's an endocannabinoid, and we have endocannabinoid receptors all over our body. So in our spinal cord, our brain, our organs, everywhere. And they're responsible for maintaining kind of balance. I'm so handy, balance and homeostasis in the body. And so when we take CBD, it just promotes our body. It works with our own endocannabinoid system. I don't want to get too scientific, but it works with our own body to help promote balance and calmness. It's really good. I take the oil. I think for me, it's the most effective way. And you place that under your tongue. It gets into the bloodstream very, very quickly. I use it a lot for people that are suffering with sleep issues to take before bed. But also to manage acute anxiety. So if you're working on a deadline and you get an email in and you get that adrenaline rush, sometimes I'll take some CBD. I'll do my lengthening of the exhalation, my breath work, and you'll find that really quickly takes effect. What do you think, Emma?
Yeah, no, massively. If I had to do a speech, which you listened to actually at the Oxford Union debate, which was so out of my comfort zone last Thursday, but I did just that. I did a couple of drops of CBD under my tongue, had one glass of wine about 20 minutes later, just before I went on, did some breath work, nailed it, won the debate. So it is, isn't it? But it's finding that, it's finding the right amount. And I think that's where, because also, CBD oils comes in different strengths, and people are like, well, that's 600, that's 1200, that's 2000, and all that part is, and how many drops, and
on that is a bit of an issue with the industry at the moment. I think my advice and the way I use CBD, so I work with and sell CBD, and I say to people, look, when you buy it from me, I will look at your own individual circumstance and we'll work out how best to take it for you. Because I think what happens a lot is people will get an oil, they don't know how to take it, they'll take too much, and it's a really precious, expensive oil in a lot of cases. And you'll get much better use out of it if you understand why you're using it and how it's working. So my advice would be to work with someone to get the best out of your oil and to make it work for you, really. We've got a question. How can you effectively communicate to the people about those social boundaries? I know it's so hard. I'm a natural yes person, so I get myself into all sorts of problems because I never want to say no to people. You have to take a step back and be really brave and explain to people that you are making some changes in your life because you are struggling and you're making positive changes. And part of that is you're going to put some boundaries in place, or it might take you a day to reply to your mum, but mum, don't worry, I'm absolutely fine. If there's any problems, you'll hear about it. But if you don't hear from me for a day, don't panic. I'm still here. I'm just busy. So I think it's just about being honest and open. I think people respect when you're honest. It's very easy to tell white lies and make excuses and hide behind excuses, but then it's kind of, I think, almost makes things worse. So I think, just being honest, open, and explaining to people you are making positive changes to better your life and you're taking control. And I mean, if they're going to argue with that, get rid.
Toxic out. That's what you're saying about toxic people. I call it drains and radiators. You know, when you walk into a room and you start talking to someone and you either feel like all your energy is just being sucked into a dark hole, which I call the drains, or you are completely energized and you leave that meeting thinking that you can go out and rule the world and everything's going to be fine, and that's the radiator. And if you really feel it and are aware of it, you can feel instantly with people whether they're a drain or they're a radiator. And the drains need to go.
Also, I think the older you get as well, the more comfortable you get with not everyone's cup of tea, which is brilliant. If you don't want to be everyone's cup of tea. Can you imagine having to please and being friends with everyone? I mean, no. So actually letting some people go along your journey, people change and we all grow and change as individuals. Some of those people come with us, some of them don't. Like it's natural shedding. It's brilliant.
Yeah, be more Marmite. I think when I embraced myself as Marmite, then it was like, just that's it, love or hate. There's no in the middle on that. And just going on to a few questions people said on exercise, because there's also, you know, at the moment there's the big, you know, obesity has a massive play in those seriously ill with COVID. Obesity is something like over 80% that are obese. And so to me, there's an open goal there with the government. They should be doing more to encourage the healthy lifestyles and getting out and exercise. But a lot of people, they hate it. They go, I don't like exercise. I'm not good at exercise. I never did sport at school. I don't like sport. There's that kind of assumption that to do exercise you have to be sporty. So what's your, you know, advice on that and just getting out there?
I think just find your medicine. You've got to. I struggle with motivation from time to time. I go through weeks where I really struggle, and when I'm going through one of those times, I literally use music. I dance. I mean, if you find me someone that doesn't want to dance, so if I'm really struggling to I don't want to exercise, I'll just put on some music, dance, go for a walk. Sometimes it's not quite as simple as this, but now is not the time to talk about it. But sometimes putting on weight isn't just because we're eating too much. Sometimes there are hormonal issues, thyroid issues, whatever. But quite often, if it's a matter of kind of calorie consumption, being in a calorie deficit and what have you, just getting out for a walk and supporting that calorie deficit and that healthy lifestyle is enough. So just find your medicine, find what works for you. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Instagram and social media we are inundated with people doing exercise things at the moment, and it's great. It's really positive. I think on the flip side, when you're not feeling very motivated, it can make you feel really crap because you feel like everyone else is doing amazing and getting up in the morning and doing exercise. And so I think it's just about finding it for you.
And people don't realize that walking is actually exercise. If I'm really stressed, I find, you know, I can get up to 20,000 steps on this and I'm just like out there pounding the towpath on the river. Doing all my Zoom calls on my phone whilst walking or just plugging myself into music and walking.
Things like cleaning, you know, cleaning is a form of exercise, you know, you like put some music on, do the cleaning, make it fun. I mean, have a dance with the Hoover, the broom. I mean, it's true, I'm mad, but anything like that, just all you've got to do is move. Our bodies are designed to move. The moment we stop moving, we'll see blockages, both mentally and physically. So, you know, or even if it's just, you know, stretch on your mat, doing some yoga, any type of movement is better than none.
And just finally, before we go, because you've done a proper like speed hack course today, just touch quickly on a little hack on mindfulness, as in just a little quick sort of go-to exercise just to get into mindfulness, just to practice for like 5 minutes of doing it, a bit like the breath work.
Okay, so that's a kind of slightly open-ended question.
I know.
I mean, there's a lot of different answers to that. So mindfulness is about really coming to now, coming to yours, the moment, which we find really difficult. So I'll do it with you now. So if you just sit there, just put your feet on the floor, whatever it might be, and I'm going to ask you just to close your eyes or keep them softly open, doesn't matter. And I'd like you just to come to the moment. How I want you to do that is to engage with your senses. So I want you to become really aware of touch, hearing, taste, sight, you've got your eyes closed, and smell. So very, very difficult to keep your not be distracted from the outside world and just notice what you're feeling, smelling, sight, hear, smell. Okay. So basically, that's a very, very quick and effective exercise to come to the now using your senses. Now, the nature of the human brain is you're probably there for a second or 2 seconds before you get dragged away. That doesn't matter. If you practice that 10 times a day, 15 times a day, again, this neuroplasticity, the kind of rewiring of the brain, it becomes easier and easier to come into that moment. It's just about silencing yourself. It's quite difficult. Did you find that quite difficult?
Yeah, but June, but that's the thing. If I really focus on something, like I've never done the senses before, and actually doing that, I did manage to switch my brain off for a bit, which was a very unusual state to be in. Yeah, so thank you. I'll be doing that.
When you go for a walk, so we all need to be getting out at the moment, especially people working in small spaces. So when you go for a walk, turn your music off, turn your phone off, and observe. So notice what you're seeing, the trees, the colours of the sky, the brickwork. Notice what you're smelling, what you're hearing, the birds, the cars, and tune into your senses as you're wandering the streets or in the country, wherever you are. And it's massively powerful, like hugely powerful. You will notice things, see things, hear things that ordinarily you may have walked past every day of your life or heard every day of your life, and you'll start to pick up on things. It's magical.
Cool. Well, yes, I did a walking one yesterday that I heard about, where you just sort of feel that, because it was snow and you can hear the crunching. I was just listening to the crunch of all of the steps, and actually I became in this like sort of trance.
Yeah.
Of just listening to the steps on the snow, which sounds cheesy, but it worked. Cool. Do you know what?
Just calms the brain down. Anything that just stops you for a second, even if you're stopping for 1 second, 2 seconds is better than not stopping at all.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. That was awesome. And follow, what are you, Chelsea Wellness Coach? Yeah, Chelsea Wellness Coach. She's always putting up. She loves the sound of her own voice, does our Katie. Little helpful videos and like tips and tricks. So get following. And also, big thank you to Gibson's Goodology. We've got a 25% discount code, Sistr25, which will go up. Will go up on the videos. So if anyone wants to try it, it does actually taste really good. They've got 3 flavors and they're all really good. I'm not lying. I'll tell you if it tastes like crap. But yeah, thank you, Katie.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And we will be back soon.
Thanks.